My name is John Holder. I was born in New London, Connecticut, and I was drafted into the U.S. Army on May 23rd, 1967, and I served in Vietnam from October of 67 through October of 68.
When you went into the military and you were drafted, who did you leave behind when you went to serve?
Well, of course, my parents, but two brothers. They're both younger than me. I lived in Pawcatuck at the time, and my two brothers were, one of them hadn't reached his teens yet, the other one was I think, just 13.
Did you receive any specialized training while in the Army?
Well, they slated me for the infantry, 11 Bravo, and after basic training in Fort Gordon, Georgia, for, I don't know, about maybe 8 weeks, then I was sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana, to a place called Tigerland, and was trained for the infantry for about another 8 weeks. And then from there, came home for like 30 days of leave, and then I was sent to Fort Lewis, Washington to get outfitted and turn in things and get issued Vietnam fatigues and things, and then sent over to Vietnam, landed in Cam Ranh Bay, and then from there I was sent to the 9th Infantry Division in an infantry unit.
What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
At a young age, you tend to adapt to whatever is given to you, but I think the part that really hit me was when I was sent to training in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and it was so swampy and damp and horrible. When I first got there, I decided I was going to exit out the back door and go AWOL. And then standing there, they made it clear that they already know that what we're thinking, and we'll go right to your house and get you. And so anyhow, after a few days, I finally settled in and realized that this is what I'm doing. But once I was sent to Vietnam, I was so glad that I trained there, because it gave me a good acclimation to what was to come.
What kind of friendships did you form while serving?
You're with a bunch of people from various parts of the country, and you start to realize at a young age that people are different from where they come from. I thought that was very interesting. One good friendship that I formed was with Ray Woods, and we were very tight. Ray always talked about, when we get back to the world, we're going to get together. He was from Marietta, Georgia, and he was a rough, tough soldier. And we was going to go to R&R together, and we put in for it together and actually got it. And he got pulled away for a couple of weeks to do something else, and by the time he came back, I had to leave to go on the R&R, thinking that I would meet him in Australia, which is where he wanted to go. I wanted to go to Hong Kong, but we both were going to go to Australia. So I go to Australia, and I spend about a week there. And when I came back, I run into Ray at the airport back in Vietnam, and he came in the next day, but the only flight was available to Hong Kong. So he went where I wanted to go, and I went where he wanted to go. So we hung around for a couple of days and traded stories. And, you know, when we got back to unit, Ray got blown up by a hand grenade, booby trap, and killed. He was carrying the backpack radio, which we call the Prick 25. And the lieutenant, me being the closest guy standing there, the lieutenant takes the radio and tosses it to me, and I carried Ray's blood on it for 6 weeks. I didn't clean it, and I just carried him with me for about 6 weeks until the lieutenant made me a squad leader.
When you did have that downtime, what did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
On a normal off-duty time?
Yeah.
Well, outside of the one time that you get to go on a R&R, there's usually not a lot of downtime. You're always doing something. You're sent out on night ambushes and night patrols or recons. with the LPs, or like they call a listening post. But occasionally we would be back at our main camp and in our barracks and maybe have one night if we didn't get called. We were a ready reaction unit, and if anybody was in combat, we were always called in, kind of like the cavalry. And so there wasn't a lot of downtime.
How were you received by your family and community upon your return?
When I came back, I was received well. Open arms, of course. I found new friends. A lot of my other ones had moved on, or some of them had gone to Vietnam and been killed. But I was well received. If you're talking about like when people yelling baby killers and stuff like that, I didn't run into a lot of that. I kind of grew some long hair for a while, like everybody did during that time. And people will make some comments to you like, you need to get in the military, they straighten you out. Sorry, I've already done that.
How did service impact you?
I think that serving in a combat unit and having that experience outside of my family and wife and kids, it's the best experience that I ever had in my life. I always say that who gets a chance to do this? I never would have volunteered for it, ever. But once I was put into it, I grew into it, especially once I was carrying the radio, because I was into more of a tight communication, so we actually kind of know what's going on. And then becoming a squad leader, now I'm responsible for others. It made me grow a lot. It made me see what my value can be. And there's parts of it that still torment, but overall it was a great experience.
What do you wish more people knew about veterans?
That's not an answer that I can come up with.
Do you have a message that you would like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
Yes. The only war in recent times that was worth fighting was World War II. And that's because our country was under direct assault. Any wars after that time were needless and should never have happened. Politicians, for whatever reasons, get us involved in war. Sometimes I think it's through industry looking to sell and make profits. People's children die. So war is a needless thing to have, and that's where it needs to start, is with your political votes.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't touched upon?
Most people recall the Tet Offensive, which was in, I think it was late January of 1968, where the North Vietnam soldiers came down and attacked every major city in South Vietnam. Few people are aware of the war that happened on May 7th, which we call Mini Tet. And that was the same assault, except it was just on Saigon. And it was major. And we were awakened before daybreak. And we're told to mount up. And we're told that we were heading to Saigon. And so we were kind of excited and thought that, well, here we go, we're going to go to Saigon and perhaps escort a convoy. Everything's going to be a fun day. And when we got there, it was probably 10 o'clock in the morning or something. And we pulled up to this village and we saw the ARVN soldiers. ARVNs are the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. And they were fully armed, and they were lined up along their fort. And we come to a stop and we're told to dismount to make sure we carry extra ammunition, extra grenades, extra law rocket launches, and they come to each one of us and made sure that we had enough. You need more grenade, soldier. You need some more belts of 50 caliber, M60 ammunition. And we realized we're not here for a convoy. And my last 8 months, I walked as a point man every day for the entire 8 months. I volunteered for that position once I became a squad leader because I didn't want to put anybody else in that position. And I got into it, actually, someone enjoyed it. However, we were told to go into a village and search it. So we're shoulder to the doors, busting into houses, looking for an enemy. And I got so far ahead of my unit that I didn't realize that I was probably 150, 200 feet ahead of them, and I'd making a right turn down a side street. And I saw 2 dead soldiers. Actually, they were civilians, and they looked like they were probably mid to later teens, and they were both laying there, and they had a polished color, so it looked like they'd been dead for several hours. So I put my M16 on rock and roll, as we used to call it, and just about that time, I saw somebody run across an alleyway between 2 buildings, and I turned to them and I yelled at them to halt, and directly to my front there was a boarded window, and the boards come flying off that window, and I'm staring down the barrel of a machine gun with a 100-round canister on it, and he had the trigger squeezed, and we were about maybe 25 feet away. Somehow he missed me. I know I was much thinner then. But anyway, I blew his chest out, and when I turned around, I was trapped inside of a village, caught between enemy fire and friendly fire, and about 5 of the enemy soldiers come running out of a building, and we had a firefight in the middle of the street between me and them, and I killed everybody that didn't get away. And my rifle overheated and jammed on me, and now I had to find a way out. Eventually, I did find that way out after trying to go back through the fire to get to my unit, which was impossible. And I ended up joining another unit that same day and got into 2 more firefights with them and carried the radio for the lieutenant. That was a full day of experience. That battle went on for 5 days. Not in that same location, but that offensive went on for 5 days that we were there. And then finally we were so torn up that they shipped us out. And I just thought I'd want to share that story. I was awarded the Silver Star of the Cross of Gallantry that day.